we were speaking about abundance and the mentality, and I totally align with you. And it reminded me of something of you quoted in your book, your first book that you written, which was called Unprofessional. Was that correct?
Correct.
All right, all right, all right. Now he's good. All right, your first book that you wrote on unpredict your first book that you wrote, Unprofessional, you put, to be unprofessional is to not be disrespectful. It is not to be reckless or lazy. It is not to be unpunctual or badly presenting or poorly spoken. To be unprofessional is to be real. And that really resonated with me because we spoke about it earlier in this conversation, but you really stand for teaching the entrepreneur to speak their truth, step into their light, and be real. What was that experience writing that book, and what was your message with all that?
So I called my first book, Unprofessional, because um, what became obvious to me from, let's say, my first 8 or 9 years in business was a large part of what disconnects business owners from themselves, from their teams, from their customers, and from their market is this need to be professional. It's this need to use the right jargon and say the right things, and this kind of need to be corporate almost. And what I identified is that, from working with so many of the most iconic entrepreneurs of our time, is that it was obvious to me that the people that were most successful in business were the people that were the most real. And that's for a few reasons. Firstly, when you bring your true self into business, you're significantly more creative, more intelligent, you're smarter, you're more genuine, and that resonates. And that resonance starts with you, by the way. So you're more on path, you're more on purpose. It resonates with your team. You're more able to connect with and lead from an authentic place. It connects more with your customers, right? We live in an age where people crave real. And so when you come across a business and individuals that are truly authentic, that resonates, that stands out, and it resonates with your market for the same reason. And so Unprofessional was a call to drop the mask and tap into the true you and lead in your personal life and in your business life from that space. And the paragraph that you just read out was just me clarifying exactly what it is and isn't. What I by unprofessional, I don't mean you arrive late and you dress sloppy and you talk sloppy. I don't. That's kind of like the negative side of unprofessional, right? Of the definition of the word. The good side of the positive or constructive side of the word for me is somebody that brings their whole selves into business, that may sometimes be construed as being unprofessional by others, but actually views that as a compliment because it's an indicator that they're being real. Branson, Richard Branson says one of the greatest compliments he ever got was that Virgin were the most unprofessional professional organization that this particular person had ever worked with. And so I was just trying to capture that essence of irreverence and authenticity.
I love that. And I was reading, so you wrote that book in 2014, and you were a best-selling author, and then you wrote another book 2 years later called Unwritten. And I saw a quote from there that I liked where it mentioned about like entrepreneurship is like mirroring life and stuff about
Mm.
that. It was like, let me read. It said, both are creation, creating ourselves, reimagining the future, and in a very real sense, building the world around us. I love that
Mm.
too. It was just so.
Mm.
What led you to write that book? No pun intended.
Mm. Yeah, exactly. What led me to write Unwritten? So I was in Rome and I was looking up at the roof of the Sistine Chapel, which Michelangelo painted in about 1505, 1515. So about 500 years ago. And I had a tour guide who was touring myself and my partner at the time, and he was explaining to us some of the meanings that were hidden in the painting on the roof. And through him telling the story about Michelangelo and some of these embedded meanings that he had sort of hidden in the paintings on the roof of the Sistine Chapel, I was able to identify super quick that, like, Michelangelo was a highly independent thinker. He was anti-religion. He was very spiritual. He was so connected to his work. He viewed it such as an extension of himself that he was physically incapable of producing work that wasn't an expression of who he was, even when he was painting the roof of the Sistine Chapel, which is a building that's incredibly significant to the Catholic Church and the Pope. And he was a rebel. He was an outlier. And I thought to myself, well, that's just like Einstein, who I had researched slightly before that. And Einstein was a physicist, in the early 1900s. And then I thought, well, he's just like Oprah Winfrey, who's, one of the most powerful human beings and entrepreneurs on the planet today. And then I thought, well, that sort of triangulates back to the same principles that Steve Jobs brought to his life and his business. And I just started to triangulate these principles and these philosophies and these characteristics that drove people that had a larger than life legacy all seem to be the same. Different professions, different eras, different periods of time, different continents, different countries, different genders. There seemed to be a kind of central archetype of greatness, and there seemed to be a central archetype of living a life that created a larger than life legacy. And so Unwritten captures, I don't know how many, maybe 12, 13, 14 different stories of these kinds of icons, and draws what's the lesson, what's the core kind of lesson or theme we can take from their life that contributes to that archetype.
Wow. So from there, you decided to write the book to teach people?
Correct. Yeah, I decided to write the book when I was in Rome, because I was like, I just thought there were so many characteristics that Michelangelo has in common with Steve Jobs. Michelangelo was a sculptor turned painter 500 years ago in fucking Rome.
Wow.
And Steve Jobs is a technologist in Silicon Valley in the early 2000s. And they're so similar. They're similar to J.K. Rowling, who's, the author of the Harry Potter books, who's credited with doing more for childhood literacy than any other person in history. And they're similar to Oprah Winfrey. And the commonalities between all of them were so stark and so obvious for me. And I felt like nobody had captured all of these different stories in a way that kind of outlined this mosaic and this archetype of greatness. And so that's why I called it Unwritten, because it was about, the stories of these people have been told, but not in that way. And so that's what it was about.
That's beautiful. And the last two subjects I wanna ask you, I could talk to you for hours, and I appreciate your time, Jack. One is your podcast, because you're on ours. I call it ours because I feel like that's how I wanted to create this, just for people. And
100%.
And I see that your podcast, you've done over 160 episodes. Ironically, I think I was looking back, your first episode was on March 17, 2016, but you put on March 10th, you put out like 10 videos in one day. What's your take on why you do a podcast? And he says, master business, is it elevate your life? Master your business?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Well, what are you doing with that? And is that just for marketing purposes?
I think my whole existence is about experiencing life to the fullest and developing myself the best way I know how, and doing everything I can to spread my message around that journey. And so I'm not really attached to any channel, to be honest. It's more just about how do I best disseminate my message and broadcast what I've got to say in the most meaningful way. From a tactical and practical standpoint, podcasts are an incredibly high growth category, right? Because more and more people want to listen, because they can listen in the car or at the gym or while they walk, as opposed to if you're reading or watching, you kind of need to be dedicated to that primary task. Whereas if you're listening, you can do it as a secondary task. And so podcasts are undoubtedly become incredibly popular over the last 10 years. and still that's going to be increasingly true going into the future as well. And so it's an incredibly meaningful channel. Why do I do it? Because I couldn't not.
That's beautiful. And it just shows a testament of what you're doing for people, and I really respect you and for what you're doing. And I think that leads to like that legacy and the greatness that you're going for. Is is that pretty much in essence your legacy, is to lay down this foundation for people to learn and to elevate their life and business forever?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most meaningful thing we can achieve on the planet over the next couple of hundred years is to elevate human consciousness.
Hmm.
I think that conscious individuals don't fight each other, particularly violently. Conscious individuals don't rape and pillage the environment or the planet on which they exist. Conscious individuals don't rob and steal from one another. Conscious individuals don't treat certain genders inferior to other genders. Conscious individuals become conscious families, become conscious tribes, communities, towns, cities, states, countries, globe. A conscious planet wouldn't have so many divides between it, and so I think as humanity we've got probably a few centuries to get to a point that I would deem to be constructive, but I mean that's the most important job on the planet right now is each of us elevating our consciousness, and so everything I do is to try and help enable that to occur one individual at a time.
And that's going to be incredible to watch you continue to do that in these next decades. And I want to support you and find a way to connect dots, because that ideology is the people I want to be around. And that leads me to just knowing how a high performing person in life like yourself, who've acquired substantial wealth through hard work and dedication and commitment. How do you keep your mindset this strong? And what do you do to like physically and mentally to keep it sharp and keep this approach?
I think there's a few things there. I think the basics are highly, highly, highly underrated. Like my system is eat well and eat less of the stuff that poisons you: sugar, gluten, alcohol, right? Exercise, move, and meditate and do things that connect you to yourself, whether that's meditation, journaling, yoga, whatever it might be.
Mhm.
I think that can take you about 90% of the way there. And I think that's a really good place for so many people to start. If right now, if you decided over the next 30 days, you were only going to eat and drink things that nourished you as opposed to things that poisoned you, your entire life would change, because your entire self would change. If you lay it on top of that, if you just exercise 4 or 5 times a week, well, your entire life just changed again. If you lay on top of that meditation and yoga, well, then in 60 days, you're an entirely different person. So I think that's the good place to start. I think the other thing is understand that your personal rituals and priorities will change and evolve over time. And so, for me, probably 10 years ago, I was a lot more adrenaline and kind of high activity focused. Whereas now I train and exercise probably more than ever, but I'm probably a bit more grounded, and so I meditate a bit more, and I meditate a lot more. I do more yoga and all that sort of stuff. And so develop the rituals that work for you. And you can get most of those rituals from just understanding the core basics and then going, how do I want to and best apply this in my life?
Mhm.
And then understand that each quarter, each year, each couple of years, whatever it is for you, you'll get bored of your rituals, you'll get bored of your routines, create new ones that reflect who you are then. But if you can always have some form of ritual and routine that enables you to stay connected to self and that enables you to stay healthy and pure of body, mind, and spirit, you will be incredibly more powerful than you would be otherwise.
And on that path that you just explained, I think it's so accurate because you won't fully understand your words until people do it and you feel it and understand the importance of what you're saying. But sometimes always people ask this question is, am I happy? Am I fulfilled? And I know you have to look at it in each arena of your life, but what would you say to someone who kind of asking those questions and like looking at that word on, while doing those things that you're saying and trying to find their path to success?
I would say focus on the daily practices that would bring about satisfaction and fulfillment, rather than sitting around going, am I happy yet? Am I happy yet? Am I happy yet? Am I happy yet? Focus on the daily practices that might bring about satisfaction and fulfillment. And so it's the stuff we just spoke about, eating well, training, exercising, meditating, yoga, as much as is practicable, right? Because no doubt there's people listening to this that are single parents, right, that are working 12 hours a day. And so for that individual, it might be, okay, get up 20 minutes earlier, meditate, do yoga for 10 minutes, meditate for 10 minutes, and that's it. And for others, it might be, they might have the luxury to dedicate an hour or two, a few days a week. And so whatever it is for you, focus on implementing and doing the work, and have the fulfillment and the happiness that comes from that as a byproduct once you've built that and habitualized those routines.
Thank you for that. And to really wrap up, I want to ask you this question because you have so much wisdom and you have so much experience, but did you have a lot of the mentors or people that you looked up to that to get this knowledge from? What would you say to that word? What's your take on it?
Yeah, unquestionably. I mean, 10 years ago, I had more mentors than anyone else I knew. I had, like you talked about the 6 elements. I had mentors in marketing, I had mentors in sales, I had mentors in product, I had mentors in capital raising, I had mentors in exit strategies, I had mentors in management, mentors in leadership, mentors in recruitment,
Wow.
mentors in media, like everything. Your relationship with mentorship changes and evolves as you do, right? And so if you think about playing the piano, right, you start off by playing the absolute basics. And then you start by playing other people's music, right? And you play other people's music to immerse yourself in what music is and to kind of learn the nuances of the music. And once you've done that for a period of time, you start to write your own songs, right? Now, when you start writing your own songs, you've still got coaches and mentors, but you're probably looking up to the Bachs of the world. You're probably looking up to the Beethovens of the world, right, at that point. And so the same is true of business mentorship. My relationship with mentorship has changed in that today I write my own music. But as I'm writing my own music, meaning I don't have 10 mentors in different fields that I catch up with fortnightly anymore, I write my own music. But in doing so, mentorship happens almost, I've got a board of advisors. From a life coach and a spirituality and a meditation and yoga perspective, I've got, I suppose, mentors in those fields. But when we go into a different field, we engage people who are experts in those fields. If we're talking about business, we engage people in those fields as consultants or advisors, or you bring them on as part of the team. And mentorship sort of tends to happen that way. So, yeah, mentorship is incredibly important, regardless of what stage that you're at, but it will look different the further you go.
I really resonate with all that because I've learned from so many people along the way, and I've had to invest a lot of money into learning from people. But at the same time, everything you said, I'm gonna use. I appreciate. So what's next for you guys? What's next for the Entourage? Where's the vision going now? For the next, where can we see you in the next 10 years?
Yeah, well, I think, if you look around globally, I still don't think there's an obvious category leader in the field of business and entrepreneurship coaching and training, right? If we talk about soft drinks, unfortunately, we all think about Coca-Cola. If you think about computers, we probably still think about Apple, right? There's a clear category leader. If you think about sportswear, we think about Nike. There's a clear category leader. As it pertains to a sort of central brand that enables people genuinely to start and build hugely successful companies, there's no obvious category leader in that space globally. And so I think that's the next opportunity for us at the Entourage. I mean, we've sort of attained that position here in Australia, but the next wave for us, the next 5 years, is about becoming the most impactful business coaching and training institution on the planet.
I'm gonna help you manifest that, and I'm gonna say you're gonna bring it to you're gonna bring it to the States, and to this year on a roaring level. And people like myself are definitely getting behind what you're doing because I know it's real. And I appreciate you coming on this show. I appreciate all your knowledge. And I just appreciate the opportunity the to really just have this conversation. So what I would ask you to wrap the show up is any final tips of advice for somebody that, whether it's an entrepreneur or just someone who wants to reach their goals and dreams. Any final tips of advice from someone like you?
I think the fundamental truth is that when the voice inside of your head is louder than the voices outside of your head, that's when you've begun to master your life. And so the more you can put yourself in the driver's seat and the more you can start to live your life from your own internal compass, the more that will be reflected in the life that you create around you.
I'll let that one sink in. Jack, I appreciate it once again. Everybody, thank you for tuning in to Millionaire Voices, episode number 8 with Jack Delosa. He is, once again, the founder of the Entourage, one of the largest entrepreneurships, networks, teachings, trainings, programs. I'm going to say this again, Jack, because I want to nail it and really let people understand. But make sure to follow Jack Delosa. Where can they find you on social media, and how can people find you?
Instagram's best, just Jack Delosa, JACKDELOSA.
Awesome. Make sure to follow him. We'll put all the links in the bio and all the stuff of the fancy technology. But thanks again, Jack. It was
Awesome.
it was an honor.